Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something we've literally all experienced but probably never noticed, the secret psychology of the $65 steak. I want you to picture a super relatable everyday scenario. You've just walked into a nice mid-tier restaurant. The host seats you at a great table, the vibe is perfect, and you sit down to look at the menu. You're hungry, you're relaxed, and you are totally unaware that you're about to step right into an absolute masterclass of human psychology. So, I've got to ask, have you ever felt genuinely relieved to order a $38 chicken? I mean, when you say it out loud, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? Feeling a wave of financial relief for dropping nearly 40 bucks on a standard piece of poultry. But today, we're setting up the illusionist's reveal. We're going to pull back the curtain on exactly how restaurants subtly manipulate our choices, step by step, right in front of our eyes. To understand how this trick works, let's just simulate the experience of scanning that menu. You open it up, and your eyes naturally start right at the top. First thing you see, the appetizers, an $18 salad. You nod? Sure, it's a bit of an investment for some mixed greens, but you're at a nice spot, so you accept it. Your eyes keep moving down the page. Next up, a $24 pasta dish. And what's happening here is your brain is actively working, rapidly crunching these numbers to establish a baseline. You're basically figuring out what normal costs in this specific room. Then you hit the entrees. Boom, the $38 chicken. Now, if you stopped reading right there, you'd probably think, wow, that's a seriously pricey bird. It definitely stings the wallet a little. But your eyes don't stop scanning, do they? Nope, you keep going until you hit the very top of the specialty section. $65. It's a massive price tag for a steak. You pause. The sheer size of that number creates this tiny bit of tension. You think to yourself, there is no way I'm spending that on a casual Tuesday night dinner. But here's the brilliant twist. Almost nobody actually orders that steak. Okay, let's dive into this. Because if no one is actually buying it, why on earth is it taking up prime real estate on the menu? Well, it's because it's the menu's hardest worker. That incredibly expensive steak isn't really a culinary offering. It's a meticulously crafted psychological prop placed there specifically to influence you. Here's how this decoy works in action. When your brain processes that $65 steak right alongside the $38 chicken, it creates an extreme contrast. Because the steak is sitting right there, looming over the rest of the entrees, it completely shifts your perspective. The chicken suddenly stops feeling like an expensive splurge and starts feeling like a highly responsible, almost frugal deal. There's a quote from our source material that just hits the nail on the head. The $38 chicken isn't $38. It's $27 less than the steak. You see, our brains simply do not judge prices in a vacuum. We don't have some internal, objective sense of monetary value. We evaluate almost everything in life entirely by comparison. And if you're thinking this is just a lucky accident or some neat trick a clever chef dreamed up, it's absolutely not. This is a highly documented science known as menu engineering. To back this up with hard data, researchers at Cornell University actually did a major study in 2004, spending extensive time analyzing exactly how menu layout impacts human spending behavior. And this brilliantly illustrates their findings. They compared standard menus to ones equipped with what they call an anchor, basically adding a high-priced item that's 30 to 40% more expensive than the next item down. The results? Sales of that second most expensive dish absolutely skyrocket. They jump by up to 25%. Literally just by printing the word steak next to a massive number, restaurants sell drastically more chicken. So what's actually happening in our heads? It's a cognitive bias called anchoring. Basically, your brain relies way too heavily on the very first piece of information it receives to make all subsequent judgments. That $65 reference point completely rewires your perception of value for the entire menu. You anchor to the 65, and suddenly every single number below it feels perfectly reasonable. Let's move along and see how this builds, because the anchor steak is a super powerful tool, but it's not the only one. Expand your view of that menu, and you'll realize you're actually holding an entire psychological toolbox. There are multiple mind games hidden right there on the page, all meticulously designed to shape your dining experience and, of course, your final bill. For example, have you noticed lately how a lot of modern or upscale menus don't even use dollar signs anymore? It just says 38 next to the chicken. This is a direct countermeasure to something psychologists call the pain of paying. It's that very real negative emotional sting you feel when parting with your cash. Dropping the dollar sign is a deliberate tactic to soften that blow, making the number feel like an abstract unit rather than your hard-earned money. And then we've got the decimals. Think about prices ending in 0.99 versus 0.00. If you see a price ending in 0.99, your brain subconsciously registers that as a discount. It's cheap, it's on sale. High-end restaurants avoid this like the plague. They use 0.00 or just whole numbers to subconsciously communicate premium quality. It tells you, hey, you aren't hunting for bargains here, you're paying for an experience. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what's happening behind the scenes. $4. That's the actual cost of the chicken to the restaurant. When you piece it all together, you realize just how incredibly effective that $65 anchor really is. It takes a piece of chicken that costs the restaurant $4 and makes you feel like a savvy genius for buying it for $38. That is a massive profit margin, secured purely by psychological design. So bringing all this together, we arrive at the absolute genius of the menu engineer. That $65 steak? It's not actual food meant to be sold. It doesn't need to be ordered. It doesn't even need to be cooked. It just needs to be seen. It's a visual reference point doing its job flawlessly just by sitting there on the paper, shifting your baseline, and completely redefining your reality. So I want to leave you with a challenge. Next time you open a menu, before you decide what you want, scan the page and find the absolute most expensive item. Locate the anchor. And once you've found it, just observe your own choices. What will you actually order? And does it suddenly feel like a great deal? It is amazing how our brains work once we finally see the invisible strings. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. If you want to uncover more of the hidden psychology shaping your daily life, make sure you hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.